£1,600 for that house. The reason why I got the house so cheap is because nobody wanted to live in that area. Now, we're talking about £5 million for that house. It's what's your hopes and dreams. Most of the kids I speak to said they haven't even thought as far as when they leave school. And they were showing you respect, and I'm thinking, wow, these are gang members, these are gang leaders. It's like, I'm waiting for it to change.
Right, Trev, tell us your name and just a bit about yourself.
Okay, my name is Trevor Swayby. I'm originally from Labatt Grove.
Give us an idea about the type of work you did as such with the young people.
Originally I started off as a volunteer youth worker, worked my way up to a part-time youth worker. And within that setting, it was mainly group work. That's what the key thing was doing those days. Group work, working with young black men at the time. And in those days, which was really good, we used to have late night youth clubs. So our youth club used to go until all 2 o'clock sometimes. Kids used to play dominoes and just watch TV, which was really good, which is something they don't do anymore. So that's my early days.
Present day, in the last couple of years, 10 years?
I worked for Southwark Council for at least 18 years, took over the management of Aylesbury Youth Centre, came to Peckham and Nunhead and was managing that area. And then from there, things changed with restructuring, and I eventually ended up leaving there, taking redundancy and leaving. So the work that I actually do at this present time, I'm now a one-to-one key worker, mentor key worker. My role, which is what I really love, involves me sort of doing intense work with a young person, sort of looking at what support I can offer that person and provide resources for that person so that their transition in life can be a lot more smoother.
Tell us about the riots and after the riots.
The riots for me was a good thing in one respect because it made people open their eyes and realise that black people at the time wasn't getting the same amount of support as Caucasian people. So for me, the riot opened up a lot of doors in the sense where a lot of small organisations that were working with black communities were getting funding by the council to develop pieces of work, and this is all from the riot. The sad thing about it, that these funding were short term, so they would probably last 3 to 5 years, and then after that, these organisations couldn't find any funding. So it was like a vicious circle. Black people just weren't getting support, black people weren't being heard, you had racism within the police force, within a lot of institutions that black people were going to. So again, for example, like within the prisons, you had a lot of racism that was going on, and when young black men came out of prison, the only thing they knew was to go back into prison because there was nothing out there, there was no support network for them, there was no jobs being offered to them. It was difficult to get a property or to get a flat because one of the things that the government see, unless you've got a child, you're at the bottom of the chain. So it just encourages a lot of people to get back into crime again because they didn't know what else to do.
What's your take on the fact that if you walk around most boroughs now, literally all those youth services or youth facilities has been closed and there's nowhere for them to go? As a youth worker, how do you feel about that?
Well, obviously, I'm very disheartened because obviously I've been doing youth work for 30 years and I've been doing youth work from the time when a lot of kids used to go in residentials, which is something unheard of now. I remember when we used to get funding to sort of run provisions. They'd give you funding to run provisions in community halls. That doesn't exist anymore. So for me, it's just things have just gone backwards. Things have gone backwards big time. There's very little facilities for young people. I mean, when I walk the street sometimes and I see young people on the street and people make noise about them and I say to them, well, you know what, where can they go? What can they do? You know, they go to a leisure centre, they've got to be a member, they need money. They go to anything that's for young people now, it's very little, and two, there's money involved in it. Not all young people's got money. Not all parents can afford to send their kids to do this and to do that. So for me, it's very disheartening, and I think that's a big factor towards the killing that's happening today as well. I think it's a big factor because the kids are not being taught discipline. They're not being shown new skills, And I mean, one example of that is I use a thing called outcome stars when I work with my young people. And one of the questions on it, it says, what's your hopes and dreams? Most of the kids I speak to say they haven't even thought as far as when they leave school. So, you know, compared to probably 20 years ago, kids did know what they wanted to do. Even when they was at school, they had an idea if they wanted to be a dustman, if they wanted to be a pilot, but they knew what they wanted to do. Today's kids ain't got no idea because they ain't got no guidance. There's no one, for me, there's no one showing them, these are what you can do. You can become this, you can become that. Nobody's motivating any young people to do anything. So that's my take on how I see things at the moment. Kids don't see, they can't see any further than probably 2 or 3 years of their life.
That brings us to the Windrush. What's your take on the Windrush and how you've seen it being in the media and how it's been dealt with?
The media itself, I've got a problem with the media because the media only portray what they want to portray. They don't portray the whole truth. I've also got a problem with the Conservative government because when all this thing was happening, they were the ones that was in charge and they're the ones that were responsible for all the papers that got missing or got shredded or whatever. But my take on the Windrush is that people that came to this country were treated really badly. When our parents, grandparents came to this country, they had it difficult. They had it really, really hard. Again, they couldn't find anywhere to live and stuff like that. They opened the doors for a lot of black people today, you know. A lot of black people's now got houses, they've got mortgage. This is something that was unheard of during the Windrush days. Speaking to my mum about it, my mum was really, really disappointed in the way people were treated. You know, these people were in this country for X amount of time, were born in this country, and yet you're looking to send them back. But send them back to where? To a different culture which is totally alien to them. These people are British. They're not Jamaican, they're not St. Lucian, Bajan. They're British, not African or anything, they're British. So to me, I think that was really, really bad. And then to be sending the parents who spent 50 years plus in this country, so although they were born in that country, again, it's like alien to them, you know? And it's really hard to know that a lot of black people helped to build this country to what it is, and then the country is saying, goodbye to you now. We've reached where we want to go. We don't need you anymore. Goodbye. So I'm pretty hurt about that.
Type of contribution? Because remember, they were taking you deliberately to do certain jobs which the native wouldn't do.
London Transport and the nurse. London Transport, you would go there and you're guaranteed you're going to see a black man on the gate or whatever. And to be honest with you, the black man was more harder than the white man when it came to paying your money as well. I have to be honest with that too, yeah? They were very hard. So for me, I look at the Windrush generation, they built London Transport. They built the NHS. Black people also brought a discipline instilled within their children as well, which now has been lost because you can't discipline your children anymore. So that's been lost, that culture's been lost. Black people used to do a lot of things, they used to have a lot of house parties, and that was about bringing all the other black people together that was segregated. And that was a good thing, which doesn't exist anymore.
Peckham and Brixton, the change in...
The gentrification?
Yes.
My dad bought a house. At the time, it was £1,600 for that house. The reason why I got the house so cheap is because nobody wanted to live in that area. Now, we're talking about £5 million for that house. Yeah. So that just shows you the difference in gentrification. When I was living in Ladbroke Grove, at the time, it was like a ghost town. Now, you can't afford to live there. You know, in certain cases, you can't even afford to even park there these days. It's so expensive.
All the black people have been conned. That's all I can see.
Yeah.
Because a good example is the estates. They told them that they're going to, gentrification of the estate, that they're going to come back when they fix it up.
Yeah, but not only that, what also happens is a lot of them, because the houses take sort of probably 3 to 5 years to build, when they move them, they get settled where they are. And they think, you know what, my kids are going to school up here, we're doing this and that. I'll just stay where I am. Which is exactly what the government set out to do.
But part of it is that, but most of them find it very, very tough. The children doesn't settle, the boys them come back, the girls them come back, living 4, 5 in one room.
Yeah.
I walk you through Peckham now, you have got 6 and 7 people living in one room.
Yeah, and the other thing with the new build, for example, my mum, where she was living, was better than the new build. Because one of the things with new builds, they don't have any storage. And the older generation loves storage. You know, they love hoarding, so they love storage.
Where are these young people in Peckham going to find that? Are people in Peckham going to find that? The ordinary person I'm talking.
Again, an example of that is my son. He's got his own place now. He's had to move to East London because he can't afford to live where he is. You know, he couldn't afford the rent. He definitely couldn't afford a mortgage. So he's had to move out. And that's what people have to do if they need to get somewhere. But it wasn't like that back in the days. Back in the days, your son would probably buy a property around the corner, you know, from where you was living. You know, back in the days, he would be probably just up the road in Sydenham, but it wasn't far. But now we're talking about moving 10 miles plus away.
So there's no more community feel.
People now don't speak to their neighbours for one reason or another. So, you know, you just walk past and you might see that person living there today. You don't know who's living there tomorrow. Where before, people used to go out to introduce themselves to their neighbours. Says, "Oh, I'm your neighbour," and blah, blah, blah.
Who was your influence?
Okay.
Either when you started to work or before you?
The person that I am today and what I'm doing today, I have to thank a guy named Dak. And funny enough, I saw him about just after the pandemic, and I actually said it to him. So I thought, you know what, I've never said it to him before, so I'm going to let him know that if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be what I'm doing today. And he was the one that saw potential in me, and he's the one that nurtured me, guided me, and sort of pointed out certain things, error in my way I was working, but he did it in a positive way that encouraged me to want to be a youth worker. What I love the most is when someone comes to me 5 years later or 10 years later and says, you know what, Trevor, I'm now a dad, I understand exactly where you was coming from, and I really appreciate the work that you was trying to do with me. To me, that's what I love. That's when I get a big buzz out of youth work. That's my high.
Just to say is, one of the few workers really that I looked up to was yourself.
Oh, right.
I really, really respected you.
For me, I found the work that you was doing was quite unique because you was working with young men. And to me, I didn't see it as part of your remit. I think that was something you was doing above and beyond what the service was asking you to do. But I loved it because the fact is you got all these young men at risk, big time at risk, and they were showing you respect. And I'm thinking, wow, these are gang members, these are gang leaders. It's like, you know, I'm waiting for it to change. And it's like, you still hold on to them and you kind of supported them. Not all of them followed your directions, not all of them will, but you helped as many as you could. And to me, that was really good. That was a unique piece of work that, for me, Southwark has never recognised.